Welcome to part 3 of the Blender to iClone tutorial. In this last part, we are going to focus on importing the model and all of its textures into iClone so that it looks exactly in iClone like it looks here, or at least pretty darn close. So with that said, the first thing I am going to use, like I did in the previous one, is I am going to use a paid add-on called SimpleBake. To get SimpleBake, you just go to blendermarket.com, type in SimpleBake, and the first one that shows up from Hottie Gray Alien is the one you want. Now, the others may work too, but this is the one that I know and use. Now, it is $16. It will save you a couple of hours of work just in the first time you use it for this tutorial. If you do this repeatedly in the future, it's just going to save you tons of time. So in my opinion, $16 is well worth it. I do not get paid for this. It's just a tool that I use and I like. Now, if you don't want to use this, if you want to do this the old-fashioned manual way in Blender, I do have links in the description to 2 other videos that will show you how to do this manually, and you are free to do so. The end results are going to be identical. This way just takes a lot less time. So with that said, let's get back to Blender and start exporting. So this is our pub table from the earlier tutorials we did. You can download this online. I'll have a link in the description in case you skipped the first 2 parts here. So I get this model. It's pubtable part2.blend. You want to open that in Blender. And then you want to click on the Render Properties tab. It's this tab that looks like an old-fashioned radio, basically. You want to make sure you're on cycles, your feature set is supported, that's all good. But you want to really scroll down to the SimpleBake section. And you want to start off with the PBR bake. Okay. And then in the settings preset, PBR bake should come up automatically. No need to change anything here. In the scene collection, right-click this table collection here. Right-click and say Select Objects. And that will select all the parts of the table in that collection. This is very important because we're going to bake different textures for each one of these parts. Because if you recall in the previous one, we created different textures. We're going to have to bake different textures for each of the parts. Now back in the bake section, bake object section, you should have all of these here. If you don't, we'll just hit add. So it's going to take whatever you selected in the main viewport and hit add. And it's going to add all those into bake objects. And you want to uncheck the bake selected objects to target object. In the PBR bake subsection, check the boxes for diffuse, metalness, roughness, and glossy. So diffuse, metalness, roughness, glossy. It's always good to have normal, good to have specular. And just for grins and giggles, I usually do alpha and bump. In the special bake section, I like to do ambient occlusion. Don't always use it, but it only takes like an extra 2 seconds, so what the heck. So we'll close up PBR bakes, close up special bakes. Down here in texture settings, make sure your bake width and bake height are set to 2K, 2048. If they're set at 1024, just press this +1K and boom, there you go. It also automatically does the output. 2K I find is a good compromise between minimizing memory usage and having rich, detailed output. So if you were going to have close-ups of this table for some reason, I might go to 4K instead. But as a general prop where you may have some semi-close shots, 2K is good. Going out to be a game asset, I would do 1K, possibly 512K. Oh, and we also want to check this transparent background. In the export settings, just set the export path to //simplebake_bakes. / means in the current directory, that our pubtable file is. The pubtable part2.blend file is in. It's going to create another directory called simplebake_bakes, and it's going to store all the bakes in there. We want to export the bakes, so make sure this is checked, and export the mesh. That's the actual model we're going to use. You can go ahead and set all exports to 16-bit. In the export format, make sure it's set for FBX. There are two options, but FBX is what iClone prefers. The FBX name is going to be pubtable. We want to apply all the object modifiers. So any modifiers that we haven't applied in Blender, we want to apply to FBX. In the normal export of FBX, Blender automatically applies all those for you. Oh, what the heck? Since we're doing it here, let's just check it. All right, then we're going to close this up. Under UV settings, we can restore the originally active at the end. Under other settings, batch name, just pubtable texture. So they'll all start out with pubtable texture. Don't worry about channel packing. We're not going to do anything with that, so I'm going to close that up. And then we're ready to bake. Just hit bake. All right, so it baked 40 images in that amount of time. Let me drag this over here for us to see. You can see, so we got leg of pubtable texture PBR alpha, leg pubtable texture PBR ambient occlusion. So you see the names are all included there, so you know what applies to what. Our pubtable.fbx is our actual mesh model of the pubtable we exported. With that said, let's start iClone, wait for it to fully load, and we will move on. So now iClone has fully loaded. We are ready to import our table. We're going to say File, Import, Import. We're going to select our pubtable.fbx, hit Open. Now it's going to ask you if you want to break it into 5 submeshes. If you want to model the pubtable where maybe it's broken or destroyed somehow, then this might be an option for you. But for our purposes, just say no. We want to keep it as one unit. Now, when it comes in, we'll take a look at it. It actually looks pretty good. Not bad at all. But it's actually not right. So let's make it right. So we're going to go to the Modify window of iClone. We're going to click on the Materials tab, and you can see all of the materials that go into it here. Most noticeably, you see the color is right. The bump, probably okay. However, the roughness is just a flat gray. It's like a default, and the metallic is a flat default, and it has nothing else. So what we're going to do is we are going to drag and drop the materials that we have and pop them in here. So I've selected the leg. The material name is leg to bake. I'm going to scroll this down. And I'm just going to do star. Actually, I'm just going to do leg star to simplify what I have. All right, so the base color is fine. And that's the same as the diffuse. The bump, that's probably the same bump, or in this case, it's a normal map. You know it's a normal map because it's purple. So we want to say normal because it's purple. We want to come back here. And now we want to do our roughness. And you see the roughness is not just one color. There is some roughness information there, so it's important to do this. The metalness. The ambient occlusion. Now we don't have specular or anything else. So we're pretty good to go with just that. So then we're going to scroll up. We're going to say shelf top baked. And we're going to come back down here, and we are going to repeat the process. Just show me the stuff for shelf. Now, there's shelf and shelf struts. So we just want the shelf part for this. Scroll down. So this is our shelf top, as it turns out. So let's change our search to that. And we can drag and drop the base color again. Shouldn't make a difference because that's actually already correct. Shelf top normal. There's under the bump. I'm going to say it's normal because it's purple. We'll do the ambient occlusion. We'll do our roughness. And we will do our metalness. We don't want to add the alpha in this case. The alpha is inverted. If we drag it onto opacity for what is opaque, it turns black. You see this part down here. So we don't want that. We're just going to delete that. We'll ignore all the alphas going forward. But at least we've got the bump, roughness, metalness for that shelf top. So we do the exact same thing for shelf struts. Drag and drop these on so they all match. And then I'm going to compress the rest of it because you're going to do this for each and every one, well, the last two, tabletop and tabletop struts. You're going to do it for each one of those also. And then you're going to get all those materials to be mapped properly. So now we have all of those materials mapped over. Let's take a closer look now. So now with the glare, you can see the texture in the wood. So you can see the roughness coming through, the normal from the bump maps and so forth. You can see it on the shelf below also. So now you have a nice, richly textured pub table. And what we want to do is to make this an asset in iClone so that we don't have to import this and remap these textures every single time we want to use a pub table. So we're going to save it as a custom prop. Go to your Content tab. So you want to go into your template, you go to Custom, and you go All, Props, Props. And you see I have a pub table I had in here before. I'm going to go ahead and delete this. And I already created, I right-clicked and I said create subfolder, and I created folders for furniture and standing. I can't remember what that was for. So we'll go into furniture. We want to select the pub table in iClone, and then I'll select the whole thing. So another advantage of keeping it as one mesh or one prop and not having subprops. And hit save. And the file name, we're going to call it pub table. The asset type is a prop. Say OK. It'll create a thumbnail based on your current view of the table. But now you can scroll out, unselect that. And drag and drop as many pub tables as we need or want into our scene. And that's really it. You now have a pub table you can reuse over and over and over. And this technique that I showed you for the pub table works exactly the same for any other Blender model you get that you want to use in iClone. So once you've got this technique down, you really have a powerful tool in your tool belt to import and create brand new models to suit your specific needs. Now, with that said, before I go, I want to talk about these UV maps a little bit. So right now we put textures in. All the textures by default come in on a UV map. So if we click this button here, we can see a UV reference will come up. And this shows you where the UV map is. This is just sort of an outline for how the texture files are then mapped onto these subjects, okay? When we imported the FBX into iClone, it dutifully imported the UV maps along with it. However, if you were to scroll to almost the very bottom, you're going to see these UV settings. So fair warning right now, don't mess with these. It's going to make your life hell. You can do UV unwraps within iClone for planar, box, and what have you, but all these texture files we just loaded are generated specific to a UV map that is present in those images. So if you come down here and hit the supply button, life is going to get bad. All right, so let's watch this. I've got this one selected here. I'm going to hit apply. Boom, which is in a planar. And it looks totally wrong. And that's because it is applying the textures totally wrong. To make matters worse, there is no way that I know of to import a UV map that matches these textures. If you accidentally hit that apply button, just delete it, drag another one in, and you're good to go. Now, hopefully at some point, an expert in iClone will come along and tell us the proper use of these UV settings and the different types. But all I know is that as a Blender user, moving models into iClone, never hit this. Don't change these and never hit apply. And that's it for this last part of the tutorial. You can now use any Blender model or model format that Blender can import, like FBX, OBJ, GLB, STL, Alembic, USD, and more. And you can then texture them to suit your needs and export them into iClone. In a future video, I'll show you some great model sites that you can use to get free models into iClone. I hope you found this 3-part tutorial helpful. Please like and subscribe. The likes make a big difference, and it doesn't cost you a ton. Please hit the like button, and I will see you in the next video. Oh, and in the comments, leave any ideas you may have for things that you would like to see, whether it's Blender to iClone, Blender only, iClone only, character creator, what have you. I don't do cartoon animator, but iClone and character creator, Blender, I'm all over those technologies. So any questions you have, any tutorials you'd like to see, please let me know, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.